This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
My name is Andrew, and I live in the Pacific Northwest. So far, I've got 6 properties in about 3.5 years, and I'm pretty happy about it. And it's all because his team of experts and just his knowledge and his time that he spent doing it. He can really guide you through it, and his podcast is excellent. And I highly recommend it for anybody, whether you're a beginner or an expert. There's a ton to learn there, and it'll help you get to the next level.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Welcome to episode 1787. Today we are going to talk to Ed Brady, and we are going to talk about the building industry. We're going to talk about the labor shortage. We're going to talk about commodities prices, construction materials specifically, and it will be a very enlightening episode. We have so many great episodes that were recorded last month that need to get out into circulation. So we don't want to get too behind on these things. They usually don't become dated very much. That is one of the nice things about the real estate world, is that things don't change too terribly much. It's not like the stock market where it changes like by the minute, by the hour, by the day, certainly. So we're going to have him on here in just a moment. And I know I said that we would plan to publish our prediction episode today. However, we just keep beefing this up with more and more data. And I don't know, maybe we'll publish it as an episode next week, and you're going to love it. There's so much here. What I've done is I looked at, surfing around YouTube and seeing what other people have been predicting and so forth. And I just find their predictions to be very incomplete. It's like these half-baked logic, even from big companies, big giant companies. I will not name names right now, but they're household words. Okay. These are all big giant companies with economists that work for them that come out with these reports. And a lot of their data is just, the best description I can use is half-baked. It's just not complete information. Many times they don't adjust for inflation. It's just not good information. And even though some of their predictions may well come true, I don't know, that remains to be seen. The information, just the way they're arriving at it, is just incomplete. And we want to give you complete information, good information, information that is adjusted for inflation, at least based on the official inflation rate, right? Of course, that's not the same thing as the real inflation rate. But let me just tell you a couple of things from my upcoming report, which I think will be fascinating. Of course, we're going to start off talking about inventory and how inventory is historically low. On a per capita basis, housing inventory literally, according to what I've been able to find, now granted, there's always a possibility I didn't find something, but from what I can tell, it is the lowest ever for starting off a year, the lowest ever on a per capita basis. And remember, per capita answers the question, compared to what? Because if we're just looking at inventory numbers and we don't compare them to the population, well, that would be extremely misleading, right? And we always want to answer the question, compared to what? We're going to look at mortgage data, the prediction there, which, by the way, is probably going to be quite unreliable, but just my opinion. The Fed said they're going to raise rates 3 times this year. I think they're going to raise them twice, and they're going to chicken out on the additional increase. We're going to look at how rents are going to have huge increases this year. Housing prices also big increases as well. So a lot of that stuff coming up. This may surprise you, by the way, and that is the amount of equity Americans have. This, in the research, has been really, I think, something that should make us very bullish on the real estate market. Because when we compare this, as many people are, comparing it to the Great Recession from 13 or so years ago, depending on when you want to say it started, and that's a matter of opinion to some extent, you got to look at the over $3 trillion of increased equity that Americans have received just in the past year. We're talking about 1 year. We're not talking about 3 years, 5 years, etc. So this additional equity, yes, some of it could evaporate if there's a recession, if the housing market crashes, that's certainly possible. But that is a 30% increase. So maybe some of that evaporates if we fall on hard times, but that's still a dramatic increase. And did you know this? Nearly 40% of all homes in the US, 40%. So that's almost half, right? Almost half of the homes in the country are free and clear. They're paid off. They don't even have a mortgage. Now, shame on them, because they should have a mortgage, right? That would be smarter to have a mortgage because they'd get inflation-induced debt destruction and so forth. But when it speaks to the stability of the housing market, that is a very, very bullish indicator. In the last year, the average home has had a $57,000 increase in equity, and that's only year over year. It's not over the last 3 years, 5 years, etc. So there are quite a few reasons to be extremely bullish on housing prices this year. But guess what? Who cares if prices decline or if prices level off and it's just a sort of boring market where nothing happens, if that were to happen, although I don't think that's going to happen. But if it were to happen, it would put even more upward pressure on rents. Because remember, when it comes to housing, people only have 3 choices. They can buy, they can rent, or they can be homeless. And when I said that in a live event once at one of my conferences, someone yelled out, "No, Jason, they can live with their parents." Okay. Fair enough. That is true. And the millennial generation has definitely been called the boomerang generation. They leave home, as they should when they're young people. They go away to college, they move to another city for their career aspirations, whatever, and then they come back. And we're certainly seeing that as an all too common trend with millennials today. There's some really interesting stuff going on. And remember my prediction, the only person making this prediction. Yep, I'm the only one. And I'm going to be right about this. You can take this one to the bank because I don't think there's any way I can be wrong about this prediction. As rates climb, who knows how much or by when, that's not the discussion, but rates inevitably have to increase, mortgage rates. All the millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of people with super low rate, artificially low rate, toxic mortgages. And I don't mean toxic in a bad way like subprime mortgages. These mortgages are well underwritten. These are not mortgages that will be extremely likely to default the way they did leading up to the Great Recession. Those people are going to become hoarders. They are not going to easily give those mortgages up. So what does this mean? This means continued pressure on a housing shortage. And it also means more boom in home renovations, which pushes the price of construction materials up, up, up. And not to mention that the builders need to catch up, and that housing shortage is going to persist for years to come. And there is one person out there who I have invited onto the show who is a YouTuber who publishes some good stuff. And I watch his work and I like it. And he is a bear. He is a housing bear. And he says that everything's going to collapse, right? That the mortgage market is just on the precipice of disaster. The inventory numbers and the housing shortage numbers aren't what we're being told. He tries to poke holes in all of these things. But guess what? Guess what he misses? He misses reflexivity. And if you haven't studied reflexivity, I've been really going down this rabbit hole lately. It's what really made George Soros famous. And listen, I do not like George Soros, okay? I think Soros is trying to ruin the Western world and really just change the world in a lot of bad ways. But he obviously is a very bright person because he became very, very rich by doing what he did in the financial markets, right? So I don't like him, but I do want to learn from some of his brilliant ideas. And one is reflexivity. And so this particular person isn't accounting for reflexivity. Okay, if this, then that. What do people do when this happens? And also, mysteriously and amazingly, is not adjusting for inflation. So we've invited him onto the show, and that's going to be an interesting discussion if he comes on. But I like his work. I think it's great. I'm just saying there are some pretty significant holes in his work. And I'm not going to mention names because hopefully he'll be on the show soon and you'll just get to listen to that episode. All right. So without further ado, let's learn more about the home building industry and some of the things that are going on there and why the builders are having a hard time catching up, some of the challenges they're facing. That's the subject of today's episode. And I am heading to Houston to speak at Rebel Capitalist Live. And I think I'm going to make my prediction talk there. I think that's going to be my speech, weaving it in with the Hartman Comparison Index, which of course has to go into this. And by the way, just this morning, we updated a bunch of numbers for year end in the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index. So we've got new numbers coming out there, a bunch of really interesting stuff going on that gives us a good guidance on what to expect this year. And again, we couldn't do that until year end, right? And some of those numbers still aren't in. So we're updating what we can. We've done some estimations of things, and you're going to just find this stuff to be really interesting. So you might remember, if you're old enough, that old commercial that was a very popular commercial years ago for this winery, Ernest and Julio Gallo. I just remember this commercial when I was a little kid. And their saying was, "We will sell no wine before it's time." Okay. And that's what we're going to do with my predictions for this year. We will sell no wine before it's time. So we just want to make this really complete for you and make it much more accurate than some of these other people out there who just frankly are kind of reckless. And they're just putting stuff out there to get clicks, to get views, to get headlines, rather than really being the wonky, geeky people they should and going deep into the data and really making much more accurate and sound predictions, or at least if they don't come out to be accurate, at least they give you the right things to think about, the right tools, the right mental models. Anyway, stay tuned for that. Let's talk about the home building industry right now. Oh, by the way, if you have not registered for our upcoming event, Creating Wealth Live and Virtual, our virtual event, yes, it is at the end of this month. Just go to jasonhartman.com, the big red banner right on the front page of jasonhartman.com. Get your tickets. I know a whole bunch of you have registered for that already, so thank you. We're looking forward to seeing you virtually, so it's super convenient. This will take place over a Friday evening and a Saturday afternoon, depending on your time zone, of course. I think you'll really enjoy this event. We haven't done it in a while, and a lot of you have been asking for it. And every time we do Creating Wealth, again, this is my most popular conference. I've been doing it the longest. It was really my original speech that I started giving in 2004. But of course, it has evolved over the years. The numbers have been updated. The ideas have been updated. And we haven't done this one for really about 2 years. And people have just raved about this event. I've literally got 2 bankers boxes, those cardboard bankers boxes of testimonials about this event, people just raving about it, saying how much they learned. And it's virtual, it's online, it's super inexpensive. It's the least expensive event we ever do because it's virtual. So we don't have the hotel cost and all that stuff with it. Really inexpensive, really easy. And you can also get the recordings if you want. That's an option when you get your tickets. So sign up for that. at jasonhartman.com. That's jasonhartman.com. And let's go right now and learn about the home building industry. Here we go. It is my pleasure to welcome Ed Brady. He is the former chairman of the NAHB, the National Association of Home Builders, and he is currently the president and CEO of HBI, the Home Builders Institute, which is a nonprofit affiliate, I guess, of NAHB, and has a ton of knowledge about the housing market, construction cost, labor shortages. They focus largely on the workforce, the skilled labor that builds homes. So we're going to talk about all of this. He's also very involved in affordable housing projects as well. Ed, it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thanks, Jason. Great to be here.
Yeah. So, we're all seeing this serious imbalance in the housing supply where there is just a major shortage of housing supply, especially, and I don't know if I'd call it affordable housing, but maybe a step above affordable housing. I'll call it entry-level housing. Yeah. Nobody's building the $200,000 homes anymore, are they? Or, that used to be 100,000 or 80,000. What's going on in the market? And, just tell us what you're seeing.
Well, you hit it on the head. Affordable means different things in different places. Affordable Sure. in Northern California could be a starter home at $700,000, and affordable in Central Illinois, where I'm from, is $225,000. Used to be 100. You're right, but in today's market, and the problem with affordability ranges across the board. One, though, certainly. Regulatory burden is a huge problem for housing affordability. Density of land uses, the regulatory burden on permits and impact fees and so forth. A permit in Northern California is $170,000 before you dig a hole, before right. you put the spade in the ground, and so that certainly creates an affordability issue. But also,
by the way, Ed, give us a comparison. So we know California is an impossible place to do business. $170,000 in Northern California to be allowed to build a home. What does that look like in Florida markets or Tennessee or wherever? Right? Give us some reference.
Yeah, I'll give you perspective. In Nashville, Tennessee, which we built some homes in Nashville, that same permit might be $6,000, $7,000. Wow. And okay. so now there's different values, but the impacts and the land uses and the constraint on land use and so forth is really a huge impediment. And so it's having an impact on supply, as you suggested. So you can't build in certain markets affordable houses. And so then you look at secondary market and you look at what it becomes, how do you keep them up to date? When do they age out of circulation? And so the issue of affordability in my space is labor. I mean, when you wait on I used to build houses in 90 days, and today it's that same house is taken 180 days. It's taken 9 months, 10 months to build.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm surprised you can build it that fast.
Yeah.
Some of them are taking a year and a half plus.
Well, in certain markets there are, but the problem is you're waiting on the labor. So I got a foundation in, but I wait a month for a framing carpenter. I got the frame up. Now I wait another 2 or 3 weeks for the plumber. And so labor is a big issue. That's what we're trying to address at HBI, is to provide the labor force that can build these homes. And supply and demand. I mean, the less supply you have, the higher the wages go up. Right. I'm all for higher wages for our students and for the people that are entering this industry. If we're going to be competitive, we have to be competitive in the marketplace for wages. But there's a balance between right. affordability and what we can sell these homes for and what it costs.
Okay, so a couple things on that. First of all, I read, and forgive me, I'm not going to remember the number, but you probably know the exact number, but it blew my mind. I read an article that the average construction worker is like 50 years old now or something. I mean, you think of these as a bunch of young guys that have the stamina for it to do that hard work out in the sun, but these are not young guys doing this work, right? So what's going on with the age? Are millennials just not willing to do construction work, or Gen Zers? I mean, you've got all these, my generation, Gen Xers are the construction workers, right? That's kind of amazing to me.
Part of the problem is we've lost a generation of opportunity. So we were pushing for the last 2 to 3 decades. We've been pushing young people into 4-year universities, into higher education. And that's good for a lot of people. And they come out with good degrees and good jobs. But there's
no, they don't actually. They come out with worthless degrees and big fat student
I was going to
loan
say there's a vast majority of those 4-year college students that come out with a degree in whatever, and
basket weaving.
They can't get basket weaving.
Hey, come on! Everybody's hiring for feminist studies, aren't they? That's like a major career.
That's right. But they can't. You're going to get me in trouble. But they can't. Yeah. They can't come out with a $30,000 a year job where a plumber coming out of high school is making $40,000 a year, and in 2 years they're making $75,000. And beyond that, they have an entrepreneurial opportunity to own their own business and to create wealth and to build a business and hire people. So that's part of the problem is on the aging. We've had 45, 50-year-olds, 55-year-olds that are retiring. I like to say we're only bringing in 2 new tradespeople for every 5 that leave the industry. And so that math doesn't add up. It takes a long time to make up that. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a decade, a long-term problem on the labor crisis.
Right. Yeah. Boy, that's something. I was interviewing someone on the show maybe a year ago, and we were talking about how construction is still a pretty primitive process. And, talking about manufactured housing and how it's just not accepted in the US, which I think is wrong, by the way. Yeah. I think we need to change our views on manufactured housing as a society, because some of it is pretty amazing, actually. The manufactured homes are not double wides in a trailer park. Some of them are pretty nice. But, my guest commented and said, the biggest advancement in construction in the last 100 years has been the nail gun. I mean, what is with this industry that it's so low tech? It's pretty much the same as it's been. Yeah. It doesn't change much, does it?
Well, you probably were talking to a 55-year-old carpenter, but let me say this. I think you're absolutely right. But there's a perception, like the trades, there's a perception of manufactured modular homes. I mean, I built a number of subdivisions, and quite frankly, we prohibited manufactured homes. These are years ago. Mm-hmm. We prohibited by covenants that you couldn't put manufactured homes in those communities. It has changed. Those manufactured homes are being built in a climate controlled and a very productive and efficient way. And so the quality has changed, but that will take some time to change that perception. But I also think that transportation is an issue. I mean, it's not cheap to build a manufactured facility to build homes. And so you have to stay within that region. And so I think there's some transportation constraints in order to make manufactured housing a much larger piece of the pie. Having said that, I've been a stick builder for 30 years, and the efficiencies have increased. Your 4x9 sheets of plywood instead of 4x8 sheets of plywood.
What does that do? Just out of curiosity.
It cuts down on the labor, because instead of putting 2 pieces up and crossing over a box sill, now you put 1 sheet up and you're done.
Oh, got it. Okay.
The efficiencies of flooring. I'm remodeling a condo. We're putting in flooring today. We used to have to put in hardwood floors. You'd have to sand them. You'd have to seal them. You'd have to stain them, and so forth. Yeah. Now it's a one-stop shop with synthetic product. You put it down, it looks exactly like hardwood looks.
Yeah, the vinyl hardwood is great. We use it all the time in our rentals. It's great.
So we are advancing. Technology is making a difference. I don't know whether 3D homes are going to be a prominent in my lifetime, but those types of manufacturing opportunities are there. But we are slow to the game. I would agree with you.
Yeah. When I say that, it's a figure of speech. I know some things have certainly advanced, of course, and at least they build some of the houses offsite and truck them in, like, the trusses and so forth. But by and large, compared to other industries, it's still pretty low tech. It's assemble the thing at the site, which is hard to do versus assembling something in a factory. But we don't need to go too much down this rabbit hole. It just sort of blows my mind.
Well, I do think the last on the multifamily. I mean, I've seen modulars go in, they stack them like Legos. I do think there's going to be some efficiencies of that. There's going to be some cost of that. So I do think it's coming.
Okay, good stuff. So we lost kind of a generation of labor to higher education because everybody was told they should go get a liberal arts college degree that has no value in the marketplace. And, they got themselves $100,000 of student loan debt with it. They got a mortgage. They just didn't get a house included. Total scam. But that's another discussion. So what is the industry going to do? I mean, the labor, how do we get the labor? Is it all going to be through immigration? Is it going to be guest worker programs? I mean, the left side of the political aisle has got these wide open borders. So, hey, the home builders must like that. What do you think about that? How do we solve the problem?
Well, first of all, immigration is about 30% of our market, our trades in this country. So 70% is not immigration. So we've got a homegrown issue here. We've got to lure the young people into this industry. And I think, but having said that, we've got a lot of people in this country that are prime candidates for this industry. We need to diversify. We need to add women to this industry. A perception that women can't do this kind of work should be out the door because of the equipment and the tools and the availability of women to be able to perform these jobs. So we need to draw the women into the trades.
There are literally, they're building homes in my area. There are zero women. I never see a female on a construction site. It's not even 1%. It's zero, zilch, nothing.
Well, and statistically,
building the houses.
About 9% of the workforce in construction is women, and much of that is sales and office manager and owners and so forth. So
they have the nice cushy jobs and the beautiful sales offices with the air conditioning.
Good for them, but those that don't want to go into the office, if you're a woman, you need to come into the industry. There's ample opportunity. But we also need to look at people of color. We need to look at diversifying our workforce. I mean, we at HBI, we're training at-risk youth. We're training second chance individuals.
That's good.
We're luring women into it. We're trying to diversify what frankly is a lily white community other than the 30% immigration into the workforce. It's a lily white community. In order to be successful, we need to diversify the workforce, and we're working hard on that.
What's the number on the shortage? If you could put a number on it, how short is the industry? Is it 30% short, 50% short? I mean, do we have half the number of workers we need, or what's the number?
Well, I don't know that answer. What I do know is we just published, with the help of Rob Dietz, the chief economist, and his team over at NAHB, that we have to create 700, and I got check me on this, 740,000 construction jobs over the next 3 years, each and every year, to keep up with the production needs.
So that's like well over 2 million jobs.
2.1 million jobs that we need to create and train for the construction industry to keep up with the demand on the housing. There's 300,000 or 400,000 every month empty jobs in our industry. So this is a crisis. It literally is a crisis in the industry, because I've got friends, builders, that are turning down business, that are 8 months out before they can start a home. So the production, we're not creating enough housing in this country.
And Ed, how much of this, if any, is really related to COVID, or I mean, this has just been an ongoing problem way before COVID, right?
Yeah, it has. In fact, there's some, hate to say this, there's some positives from what came out of COVID, and that is we went digital. And so we exposed ourselves to a number of different people that wouldn't have seen it. And so because we're a hands-on trainer, I truly believe, and HBI's philosophy is 75% hands-on. It's like playing the piano. You got to practice it to become efficient in it, and you got to practice it to be better. So we're 75% hands-on. COVID shut that down for a year. And so we were able to really update our learning management system, our simulations, our digital presence. And so we've actually been able to expose the industry to, I have 25,000 users on our learning management system today.
Yeah, that's great.
In March of 2020, we didn't have a learning management system. So we've been able to expose ourselves. Now, that means that they get information.
So more training for people and more knowledge about the career opportunity.
That's right.
Yeah.
And back in the Great Recession, schools had budget problems. The first thing they cut was shop class. My generation, shop class, career technical education. And so we're bringing that back into the schools in 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th grade. In fact, we'd like to start them introducing it to them in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, because we lose them by the time they get to 9th or 10th grade. But if we can bring it back into the schools, then we'll have, it's like baseball. The more times you get up at bat, the more chances you get to hit a single. And so we need to introduce this industry to more and more people in order to get the numbers.
Yeah, no question about it. Okay, talk to us a little bit more about how we can solve the affordability problem, if you would. I was just blown away by what you said when we started, that in Northern California, a permit to build a house, all regulatory stuff considered, I'm sure, not just a permit per se, is $170,000 before you can start digging. And I think you said in Tennessee, $6,000.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable how much it adds to the cost of the home. What about zoning? What about other regulations? Like, how much has that regulatory burden increased? I just noticed it throughout my career in the brokerage side of the business, that every year when I was in California back in the old days, there was like a new slew of regulations. You had to have low flow this. You had to change out the toilets. You had to do this, that, and the other thing. It was the smoke detectors, then it's the carbon monoxide detectors, then it's the fire sprinklers, and, all of this stuff. And I'm not saying all of that's bad. Yes, it does improve quality of life, keeps people safer, it's better for the environment. But the problem is, when you do that, it's kind of like saying, well, let's raise the minimum wage. Okay, everybody's just going to get paid more. But what they don't show you is how many people never get hired, right? So it's, it increases the homelessness problem, doesn't it?
How are we going to solve the affordability issue? It's a collection of a lot of things, but you have to start with regulatory. You have to start with the density. New Hampshire, I'm not picking on New Hampshire, but their codes, you can't build on anything less than an acre.
Wow.
In Illinois, suburban Illinois, you might be able to put 18 units an acre. Okay,
right.
So just look at the same cost, and so we have to cut down on our regulatory burdens. Back to the permits and the inspections. I had 29 inspections in Nashville, Tennessee, on one home. So you have to inspect the layout. You have to inspect the foundation. You have to inspect all that costs time and money. And
you got to wait for the inspector before you can continue the project, right? At each stage.
And then the things that they're putting into the codes. Look, there's a lot of good energy efficiency standards and things that are in place, and I think we have to consider all of those. But you also have to consider the cost benefit analysis to what you're putting in those codes. Sprinklers. I'll be first to say, I like sprinklers, but it's an insurance issue. It's not, you're not saving lives in sprinklers with houses based on the cost. And so you have to look at those and say cost benefit. Now, one life is too many. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But we have to be conscious.
But you don't know how many lives are kicked out onto the street because of these regulations. How many people are sleeping in their cars because homes have become so expensive that as soon as they lose their job, they're out on the street. That's what nobody talks about. I always say, Ed, you can't hear the dogs that don't bark. And the dogs are barking, people have to listen because it creates a whole nother problem nobody's accounting for.
That's one thing I'm very proud of with our work with NHB and the other advocacy groups in real estate, the Realtors Association, the Multifamily Council. Everybody's advocating for the things you just talked about to make sure that there's balance between cost benefit analysis and who is looking out for those that can't afford. Every $1,000 in cost increase, you lose so many buyers that can realize part of the American dream. And so we have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, we sure do. Anything on the financing side? That's probably not your area, but I just thought I'd ask if you want to talk about anything financing related.
Well, no, I just attended the mortgage roundtable that NHB puts on every year. And as I said earlier, or you said maybe, I'm on the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago board, on Enterprise Community Partners board. And we do a lot of housing finance. We do a lot of affordable housing finance. I concentrate a lot of effort on single family home ownership finance, down payment assistance, and so forth. We're going to have to look at one of the big things that, again, has been talked about, but we haven't moved on, is credit scores, right? And who can qualify for a loan. Credit scores don't take into account rent. And so if you're renting 3 months,
changing though. Yeah.
3 years, it is changing, but we have to really elevate that in order to bring more people into that market.
Same with utilities. They might report on your credit if you default and don't pay, but when you do pay, they don't report. So they're only showing you when you're a bad guy, never when you're a good guy.
Right.
It's unfair.
The ability to pay should and would be the criteria. And if you have the ability to pay, you have a good paying job, then that should be more weighted. And so housing finance, historically low rates right now, more affordability. As those start ticking up, I also say people of color have a disadvantage for a lot of reasons. And so we need to try and level the playing field in housing finance. And some of those things that we just mentioned should do that and should help benefit from that.
Tell me about the disadvantage there regarding race. What were you going to say about that?
Well, I mean, the credit scores. If you're a renter and frankly, you didn't come from a family of wealth, you're less likely to have a down payment. So we need down payment assistance. Just because you don't have the down payment doesn't mean that you can't afford to pay that mortgage. And so the people of color is 40, don't quote me here, but 48% home ownership rate, white 73%. So where's that disparity and why is that?
The thing that concerns me though is, you get into like the Community Reinvestment Act, which, a lot of people blame as causing the Great Recession, or really the Great Recession was really a two-part thing, right? But the mortgage meltdown part of it by sort of pushing these lenders to just give loans, especially based on race, right?
Absolutely. But that was underwriting. They were they weren't doing underwriting.
Right.
And I would never suggest that we go back to, no doc underwriting and you don't have to have a job to qualify. So, but if we do it right and we build increase the across the board, the wealth in this country and provide assistance for those that may not have had that background and had the down payment that can still afford, then over decades, it's not going to happen overnight, over decades, we'll build wealth in those communities. And that in itself will help alleviate some of the problem.
Yeah. Do you have an idea as to where the homeownership rate should be as a percentage? I personally don't agonize about this, and I don't think it needs to be that high. George Bush kept beating that drum, and I think it led us into the Great Recession to some extent. But people differ with me definitely, right? And I'll tell you what changed my mind, Ed, that's interesting maybe you remember seeing this article. I think it was the cover of Time or Newsweek back about 10, 12 years ago, probably now. And it made me think of this in a different way, that all these areas with high homeownership rates actually also had high unemployment rates because people didn't have the flexibility to be able to move for work, right? For job offers. And I started saying after that, the best thing you can have on a resume is mobility, being able to move to where the jobs are. So I'm not sure that everybody needs to be a homeowner. I do think everybody should be a real estate owner, an investor, but they don't need to own the home in which they live necessarily.
Right. And you can help there. I had a dinner conversation last week on this. Been in it for 33 years. I think somewhere around the 64, 65%. I've had some pundits that say it should be 60. I've had some think it should be 70. I think that is kind of, but I agree with you. Not everybody should own a home. It's not for everybody. There's things that you need to have in order to own a home. I think it should be accessible to everybody, but we should not push people into home ownership with this false promise.
Right. And to go back to your prior thoughts, the whole FICO score system is just totally outmoded, I think. It's terrible that they don't report rents. Now, you can do that now. There are some programs, I've done some shows on it.
2%.
Nobody's really doing it yet, right? So hopefully that'll catch on. Utilities, same thing. That should be reported so that people can improve their credit score by having reporting of bills they're already paying. Yeah. Okay. But just the whole way that system works is just,
I'm a proponent of financial literacy too. Yeah. I mean, housing counseling, it works for first-time buyers, regardless of your background. And you really shouldn't own a home if you don't have that simple aptitude for financial literacy. And right. we were pushing people into that. And so we've got to be careful. It's not for everybody, but it is part of the American dream that people want to aspire to, and certainly should have access to if they aspire to it.
Yeah. Ed, is there anything we didn't hit on that you want to share with people? Any questions I didn't ask you?
Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question on COVID, Jason. I think we had some opportunities to expose, but COVID, we were essential as a construction industry. We were essential during the pandemic, and that kept a lot of people busy. And fortunately, we've had a really boom economy in the housing, as you know, building a lot of units. We can't build them fast enough. I think the construction industry is a safe place to work. And so we need to expand opportunities for the training of these opportunities for people to get into it. And COVID did push some of that back in the sense that they couldn't come to our sites, they couldn't train, and you can only do so much online. To your point about innovation and technology in the construction industry, you got to know how to operate tools and be efficient in tools, and safety. Safety is a huge aspect of what we train. So I didn't necessarily answer your COVID. There's been pros and cons to what's happened in COVID, but I will say this, and my last is, if we invest, we talk about infrastructure, we talk about this Build Back Better. If we don't invest in our young people in this country, we're going to continue to have some of these problems, not only production problems, but civility problems. We have been fighting racial equity in our business for a long time at HBI, but what is the best way to keep people productive? Give them a meaningful and skilled training so that they can be a productive part of society. And so we as a country need to invest in our young people in that way too, not just higher education.
I couldn't agree more. I'm glad the cat is out of the bag on what I call the university debt enslavement complex. Because
I always say, if somebody graduates from high school, goes into a plumbing business, become plumbers and own their own business, and their friend went to 4-year college, came out with $100,000 worth of debt, and they got a $45,000 a year job, it's going to take them years, if ever, to catch up with the income levels of that plumber.
I agree. And that just shows you how much we need skilled labor in this country. There is an extreme shortage because people have been lied to. They've been, they've sort of shamed these careers to say that, it's bad to be a blue collar person, a blue collar worker. And, you got to work in an office and be a white collar person. And, it's just not for everybody, right? There are different people, different strokes for different folks. And there's absolutely no shame in doing that. And you're absolutely right, Ed. That plumber is going to make a lot more money than that college graduate.
And look, to your listeners who are investors in real estate, you're always going to need a plumber. There's always going to be fixes. Right. And the cost continues to go up with the lack of plumbers. And so, to keep our properties and our investments from going into obsolescence, we need to maintain them. And the skilled trades are the answer to that. You're not going to innovate your way through, cast iron pipes being replaced with modern technology. So it's an ongoing problem. And certainly to your listeners and your investors in real estate, it's a shortage that won't take care of itself.
No, that's absolutely true. And listen, I just want to say before we wrap it up, I'm not totally against college as long as it's like a STEM degree, right? If it's science, technology, engineering, medicine, you need to go to college and get a degree. And those are super important jobs, but they pay well. And people are hiring for them.
And so I gotta say, full disclosure, I went to a nice liberal arts school. I came out with a nice broad base, but that practical job getting something in job experience makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Coming out with a degree may have given me a little bit of a head start on where I wanted to go. So look, there's enough for everybody to go around, liberal arts, STEM programs, but I think we just need to concentrate on the population and what the needs are and fill those needs instead of forcing the issues.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, give out your website and tell people where they can find you.
Go to hbi.org, Google workforce development will probably pop up. We have programs all over the country. We're in 50 states, and we'd love to help you out. If you have somebody that's interested in the trades, don't know where to start with us.
Good stuff. Ed Brady, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jason.
As an income property investor, imagine being able to tap into a nationwide network, actually a worldwide network, of investors who share your same challenges and successes. Imagine being able to leverage the experience of experts and learn from their achievements and their mistakes. The Empowered Investor Inner Circle is an exclusive community of like-minded and successful investors who help each other invest smarter and avoid common setbacks and pitfalls. Join us today and take your portfolio to the next level. Level up and learn from the mistakes of others. Level up and effectively self-manage your portfolio. Level up and increase your peace of mind and your profits. Level up and gain greater control.
When you join the Empowered Investor Inner Circle, you are joining a network of accomplished, experienced, and knowledgeable investors. Investors who will help you take control of your investments while saving you time and money. Managing a portfolio of income properties in a diverse range of markets across America has never been easier. With technology, almost every aspect of income property investing can be done from the comfort of your own home. Join the Empowered Investor Inner Circle for monthly live training sessions with Jason Hartman and special guests to discuss which investment strategies will work the best with your unique life situation and portfolio. Get regular real estate updates and articles so you're in the know and up to date with what's happening in the world of income properties. You will also receive inside access to Jason and his team of investment counselors who will quickly answer any of your questions. Access our Rolodex of vetted resources, including property managers, contractors, plumbers, and electricians, so you know you're getting someone who does high-quality work. Act now and we'll include 1 free year of access to Property Tracker, a web-based program that will help you manage your income, expenses, legal documents, contracts, and all contacts associated with administering income properties nationwide. A 1-year subscription to Property Tracker costs $347 per year, but if you sign up for the Empowered Investor Inner Circle today, you will receive 1 year of Property Tracker access for free. Don't let this unique opportunity pass you by. Join the Empowered Investor Inner Circle today.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.